Hey, what's up? What's up? You're hanging with the beast. Give me back my 90s music podcast. And what I'm talking about today is the recent news for the 2023 inductees to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I found out about yesterday morning, which I'm still kind of really confused about. Although, to be honest with you, nothing ever really makes sense a lot of the times when it comes to this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame type thing. But just looking at some of the acts that are in there, breaking them down, obviously there's always going to be a lot of bands, singers, people that don't get in for whatever reason. So, without wasting any time, the performers who made the class of 2023: Kate Bush, Sheryl Crow, Missy Elliott, George Michael, Willie Nelson, Rage Against the Machine, The Spinners. Isn't what song is that? Burn Baby Burn, right? Like that big 70s type shit. Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? The Musical Influence Award, DJ Kool Herc. I don't know who the fuck that is. Link Ray, I don't know who that is. Musical Excellence Award, Shaka Khan, Al Cooper, Bernie Taupin, which is Elton John's writing partner, and the Ahmet Erdogan Award. He was the executive at I forgot what record company. The Don Cornelius, obviously. So, uh, just I'm still trying to figure out one thing that I don't understand is who makes the decision on how a lot of these acts get into the Hall of Fame, because what is it based on? I know it has to do with something 20 years or something like that. You have to be active or still together. So here's what I don't get. And maybe it's just me, but I see Rage Against the Machine is in, and well deserved. My hat off to them. But why is Rage getting in before Soundgarden? Because Soundgarden was around long before Rage. So I'm trying to figure out why that is. Um, no disrespect to Kate Bush. I got to admit, I didn't know who the fuck Kate Bush was until I started watching Stranger Things and obviously heard that song Running Up That Hill. I know she was really big in the 80s. She had a great voice. Don't get me wrong. She's kind of cute, too. But I never heard of her. So maybe in overseas, she's a lot bigger than she is here. But I, again, to get into the Music Hall of Fame, I don't know. I mean, I would think that you would really have to kind of, especially when you're overseas or another country, you would really have to kind of, be doing damage on both sides of the planet. I don't know. Okay, Sheryl Crow obviously gets in. I mean, she's like the female Bob Dylan, if you ask me. Great guitar player, great singer songwriter, so many hits. It's like you could only name some. You can name so many of them. Great voice. So obviously she belongs in there. Missy Elliott, I gotta admit, I don't really listen to a lot of rap. I don't listen to a lot of her music. Um, there are two schools of thought with this. One being that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and when it comes to other music, it gets a little sketchy when somebody gets in that isn't really in the rock and roll genre, because Missy Elliott's not really a rock and roll singer, nor does she play an instrument that I know of. So I'm always curious to know, well, the two schools of thought of, should you change the name of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to just the Music Hall of Fame? Or should you have another Hall of Fame? Like, they have the Country Hall of Fame, they have the Writers Hall of Fame, all that shit, stuff like that. I don't really know. There are people that feel that performers such as her belong in there because the roots of the music go into rock and roll, which I guess is pretty much true, because all music really comes from blues and soul. So I guess in a sense you could say that. But again, when we talk rock and roll, I think you're talking about a specific type of music. Like if you were to say jazz, that's a specific type of music. But then even on that note, there are jazz musicians in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So maybe you should just change the name of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to, to obviously the Music Hall of Fame. And maybe that would make things a lot easier. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't. But whatever the case, I just think that you could probably solve that problem by doing that. Although on that note, I will say that if you've ever seen the performance, I forgot what year it was. I think it was 2016, where it was they were doing "Down by the Crossroads," Robert Johnson's song, and it was Run DMC, and it was what the hell's his name from Public Enemy, along with Chris Cornell, Dave Grohl, the lead singer of Heart, John Fogerty. It's a kick-ass. It's one of the Tom Morello, who totally shreds in that performance. It's one of the best performances I've ever seen by from the Music Hall of Fame. So it is a cool compilation when you have all those people involved. But again, that's always one of the questions I think that comes to mind. Then, of course, you have George Michael, who, obviously it's well-deserved to him to get in there because he kind of carved out his own unique niche in the music industry. I mean, I'm not the biggest George Michael fan, to be honest. I mean, I appreciate him, man. I appreciate he had a great voice and stuff like that, but I wasn't a big fan of him or Wham and stuff like that. But had been in the game for a long time, made a lot of songs, and obviously found his way in, which is well deserved. So that you can totally understand. Plus, I think George Michael, for some people, similar to Prince, man, he came along and really established himself and a huge following, and had this huge impact on music, especially going from the 80s to the 90s and then on, going from, like I said, Wham, and you're in an 80s band, typical 80s band, that 80s sound. And then you transcend into the 90s where you're doing your solo thing and developing and still growing. So well deserved. Willie Nelson gets in now. Willie Nelson should have been in the Music Hall of Fame 30 years ago, even more. By far one of the greatest singers, songwriters of all time, and performers. I had the luxury of seeing him live at the amphitheater in Coney Island a couple years ago. For a guy who at the time was 80-something years old, he did like 25 songs back to back to back, never sat down, just kicked out songs and included an encore. I mean, look, if you give two shits about music and you don't know who Willie Nelson is, you got a serious problem. You're missing out, because the man has been around since the 60s. In fact, go and look at early pictures of Willie Nelson from the 60s. Doesn't really look like him at all. The classic Willie Nelson we know, with the long dreaded hair and the headband and smoking that good weed, which I think definitely has only helped him, man. But, for a guy who's lasted the length of time that he has and still going strong with performances, these big venues, it's amazing. I mean, how many bands and singers have covered his music? How many songs did he write for other performers? The guy is up there with the greatest of them all. Why is he just getting in now? Isn't he like 90 and he just gets in now? They did the same thing to Neil Diamond, who should have been in many years before they got in. And again, I don't know who does this voting, who makes these decisions, who makes the decisions on how many performers get in, on why you can't have more that get in. Because to be honest, there are people in that Music Hall of Fame who I question as should they be there. One band who I always comes to mind for me is the Zombies. Time of the Season, Tell Her No, She's Not There. I know 3 songs by that group. 3 songs. How are they in the Music Hall of Fame? To me, it's a little strange to have the Zombies here, the Rolling Stones there, Johnny Cash, Elvis, and so on and so forth. Again, I don't know. I don't know who makes these decisions. Very strange. Obviously not me making the decisions. We said Rage Against the Machine. Obviously, they deserve to get in. I mean, let's face it. When Rage came on the scene, there was nothing like them at all. I mean, they were an absolute and utter powerhouse, whether it came to lyrics, whether it came to their videos, whether it came to the messages behind the songs, which I always thought was very interesting. And it was very, very, very educational, like taking a history lesson. An extremely political group, which I think kind of hurt them in a sense, to some extent, because they were very political. I think it may have had a hand in kind of causing their demise, although I don't know that. I mean, from what I read about them, obviously there were some, I guess, some interpersonal problems with the band, as we see with most bands. But yeah, when they first came on the scene from their first album, it was like nothing you've ever heard. In fact, when I forgot which show used to be on MTV, when MTV used to be MTV, when it would come back from commercial, the song that they would always have, like the little 10-second intro, would always be, I think it was a Killing in the Name of, or Freedom. Da na 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 da na 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 na. That was always their intro. And from that album, we saw them just absolutely blow the doors off things, with the albums they had after it and the hits. I mean, you go to any radio station from the 90s, and I guarantee you 5 times out of 10 you're going to hear something from Rage plays. I mean, it's funny because I think the more you dig into their collection of music, the more you appreciate them. Again, they had so many good songs. They were actually they were in concert here in New York for 2 nights back to back at the Garden. The tickets were astronomically expensive. I didn't have the luxury to see them, but from what I heard, they were really tight and sounded really good. I think there's been rumors floating around that they would maybe come back together, but I don't think that's going to happen. I haven't heard anything like that. It would be always cool to have them come back. But just a great combination of music. I mean, it's one of those groups that really fit for the time in which they came from. A lot of the performance power that Zach De La Rocha had. He was always badass, kind of cool looking with the dreads and the way he would dance around. And of course, the way the great Tom Morello shreds on guitar, which there's never been anything like. For so long, if you didn't know that was a guitar player, you probably thought, like I did, that was a DJ scratching records. No, that's Tom Morello shredding, using that whammy bar to his advantage. So they're just a powerhouse, man. Guerrilla Radio, Take the Power Back, Boomerang, People of the Sun. They have so many songs that weren't greatest hits that were phenomenal too. And one of the many great aspects about them is that they have their own unique sound. You can't go anywhere or listen to a song from, Rage Against the Machine and not know it's them, especially when you hear they have their own type of sound. Their cover of The Ghost of Tom Joad from Bruce Springsteen is 10 times by far better than Bruce Springsteen's version. Probably one of the best cover versions of a song I've ever heard. So it's well deserved that they're in. I just don't understand how they're in and Soundgarden isn't, when Soundgarden was around a lot longer than they were. I mean, going back to 1984, I believe. So I don't understand, again, how these things work out. Is it politics? Is it who you know? Is it votes from fans? Is it clicks, likes? Obviously, it's talent, because every one of these people has it. But what is it exactly that makes one get in and one not get in? What is it that makes one get voted for and what not? What is it that makes one for this year and one not for this year? Is it like sports? I don't know. If it's like sports and it's like writers, again, it's subjective, really, if you want to think of it that way. Who else? The Spinners. Look, I know one song by the Spinners. Obviously, the dancey song from the 70s, which you see in, like, what is it? Saturday Night Fever, or was really famous in that movie, great movie, Kingpin. Burn, Disco Inferno, whatever it's called. I know one song by them. I'm sure they have other songs, but I'm just not aware of it. Do they really belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I mean, again, that's just like one of those question marks to me, at least. If anybody knows of a good reason why they belong in there, just let me know. And I could be wrong. I don't know everything. I'm a big dumb animal with a tail. I talk to pumpkins. This was the first time Sheryl Crow, Missy Elliott, George Michael, Willie Nelson were on the ballot, and it was also Elliott's first year of eligibility. So that's interesting. That, first of all, why is Willie Nelson just on the ballot now? Willie Nelson's been around much longer than 20 years. Again, who makes these fucking rules, man? I don't know. Yeah, and then of course the musical influence award. Like I said before, I don't know who the hell DJ Kool Herc is. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he whatever? I don't know. Is he from? Where's he from? Link Ray, heard the name, don't know who the fuck they are or he is. Couldn't tell you, or she is. I don't know. Musical Excellence Award, Shaka Khan, Al Kooper, Bernie Taupin. Obviously, Bernie Taupin belongs in there for the wonderful collaborations he's had with Elton John. I mean, those guys are just like writing gold every time they write a song. So, again, there's another guy who should have been in there a long time ago. Shaka Khan, I wasn't really too familiar with. I know a couple of songs by her, obviously. I know she was a big name in the 70s and 80s, I believe, but I wasn't, I'm not really too familiar with her music. And of course, a special award for Don Cornelius, who was kind of like Dick Clark with Soul Train, if you will. So I could understand him getting in there because he had a big effect on music for that show with Soul Train. Getting different and new performers under the spotlight and having a show that lasted a very long time. I mean, he also had a really distinct way of how he talked. I've seen a couple of comedians kind of do really good impersonations of him. He was like a very individually unique. So I think it's always cool when they honor people like that who are a big proponent of music and have a platform such as he did, Dick Clark, Ed Sullivan, stuff like that. So again, I'd like to see who didn't get in, who was eligible. In fact, while we're here, I wonder if I can find that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that did not get in. Let's see. Will I have any luck with this? Nominated acts that didn't make the cut for 2023 include Iron Maiden, Joy Division, and New Order, Cyndi Lauper, Soundgarden, A Tribe Called Quest, The White Stripes, and the late Warren Zevon. Zevon's cause was publicly rallied by high-profile fans, including Billy Joel and David Letterman. Wow. 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 So first off, I'm a huge Joy Division fan, man. How the fuck doesn't Joy Division get in? Now, I know they didn't have a lot of albums, obviously, because of the death of Ian Curtis, the lead singer, the unfortunate suicide. But for the short time that they were around, they made an impact on music. I mean, you ask anyone who was around at the time who knows their salt about music, and they'll mention Joy Division. I mean, and a lot of famous musicians and groups really drew from Joy Division. I think that they were one of the most underrated, unappreciated bands of all time because unfortunately, they didn't get the notoriety in the States that they did, obviously, in England. And I think they were definitely on their way to doing it. They became a lot more famous after the fact, which is always interesting. So I don't know why they're not in. They definitely should be. Cyndi Lauper should be in the fucking. Come on, man. I mean, when you think of female powerful lead singers, you can't help but not think of Cyndi Lauper. Her voice alone, the lyrics, the songs. I mean, the image. I think of the great days of wrestling from the 80s with her. I think of the Goonies song, right? Remember from the great movie The Goonies? She had that great song off the soundtrack, and she's still going strong. I mean, girls just want to have fun. That's like a staple for like all time, man. How the fuck is she not in the Music Hall of Fame? You talk about like innovators for females. She was in that top group, similar to Pat Benatar and similar to Stevie Nicks, if you will. That carries that wonderful tradition for women lead singers. She should be in the Music Hall of Fame. Again, she should have been there years ago, honestly. Soundgarden, I don't know how you rob a band like this of not getting in. You've got all the other bands from Seattle that are in there, and they're not in there. I mean, that's complete bullshit. Okay? To my knowledge, they were what? If they were around since 1984, they were around long before Nirvana, and they were around before Pearl Jam. They were around before Alice in Chains. And the way they transcended themselves through the years was amazing. I mean, how many hits when you think of Soundgarden, right? Let's just talk about their songs in general. Slaves and Bulldozers, right? Spoon Man, um, Black Days, Black Hole Sun, which is probably their biggest commercial hit of all time in terms of video and radio play. Uh, Blow Up the Outside World, Outshined, my favorite, man. I mean, on and on. Chris Cornell by himself, one of the greatest lead singers of all time. What a band. Kim Thale. I mean, they should be in the Hall of Fame. I can't believe that they didn't get inducted. I want to know how this is being done. Are they drawing straws blindly or something like that? Is it a dick measuring contest? I mean, what's going on here? Tribe Called Quest should be in fucking Music Hall of Fame, bro. I mean, Tribe Called Quest, I was a huge fan of theirs back in the day. They had a sound like no other. They had a nice, unique Queens R&B rap sound with some fucking killer lyrics, man. Just a killer sound. I think that set precedence for a lot of different groups in the hip-hop world. They should definitely be in there. If you got these other groups and singers from that genre, they should definitely be there, man. The White Stripes and the Warren Zevon. Now, Warren Zevon I can't attest to because I'm not really too familiar with his music. I mean, I do know, Werewolves of London, of course, fabulous song, but I'm not too familiar with his other work. But I do know from many others that he was phenomenal. But for some reason or another, he's just not getting the notoriety he deserves. The White Stripes, I could see them not getting in. Great. I mean, Jack White is phenomenal, but I could understand that one a little bit because, maybe for the timing, maybe for the length. If it's a thing of longevity, I could totally understand that. But again, I want to know who's making these decisions. Iron Maiden, coming back to them, I'm not the biggest Iron Maiden fan, although, Bruce Dickinson has himself a great voice. Again, a band with a very unique sound, with a huge following. I mean, they're still touring. You would think that with the fan base that they have and the sound that they were able to produce, that they would be in there. But again, for some reason or another, I don't know. They didn't make it. I don't know. And again, I don't know if it's the first time these groups and singers have not been in or been inducted. I think Soundgarden, they've tried just the second or third year. I'm not sure. But I would think Iron Maiden would get in there. Again, if anyone knows how these things work, please let me know. I've heard that there is a specific way that these things are assembled. But, these man-made systems, the way things are done, I think sometimes it's a lot of politics, a lot of who you know, and a lot of times, again, if you go through the Music Hall of Fame and look at some of the acts that are there, I think that you're going to find, you kind of question yourself, like I said before with the Zombies. Like, how the fuck are the Zombies in there? And Soundgarden there's something really weird about that to me. It would kind of be like if you had like an NFL Hall of Fame and you had, maybe a good example would be for all you football fans out there. If you had like a Ken O'Brien in the Hall of Fame and not a Joe Montana, you would kind of think, what the fuck? I don't know who makes these decisions. I wonder if is there a board that works with or for the Music Hall of Fame and looks at, groups and singers who are eligible. I mean, I don't know. It's infuriating too, man. It really is, especially this being a 90s music podcast and one of the greatest bands of all time from the 90s, Soundgarden, still not getting in. I think that the Music Hall of Fame really scumbagged Chris Cornell and Soundgarden by not letting them be in, and especially by having their cohorts in there before them. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any. And if it's a popularity thing, how is Soundgarden not popular? I mean, I just don't get it. I really don't get it. But I don't know, man. Same thing with Kate Bush. I'm wondering again if there are a lot of people out there who are Kate Bush fans in the '80s. Can you send me some info on her? Because I haven't been able to find too much thus far that shows that shows who a lot of the stuff she did. I could be wrong though. I don't know. It'd be nice to know if I'm wrong with that one, man. But I could, she gained a lot of notoriety, obviously, with Stranger Things. She blew it up. I mean, that song was like number one on the fucking download charts after that. But again, is that the only song she's known for, or is she one of those singers who was really big in Europe and not as big here, which could be. Well, I don't know. Like I said, I'm always open to hear more about that. So, all right, came at you with this episode. I thought it was important. Talking about the Music Hall of Fame. And again, if you guys have any information on how and who gets picked, when, where, rainbows, crocodiles, I don't know, left, right, up, down, wooden doors, polyurethane, let me know. Because I'm curious to know. All right, be well.